Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 7 of 20-something live on thirdbrain.com. My name is Jake Udell, and as always, we have 3 amazing guests with us today. Our first guest is going to be my guy from Summit Series, Pete Gross. You're going to hear a little bit about what he does in a minute. The second is the almighty, legendary Disco Donnie. I believe he's live from Puerto Rico, but he's a traveling man. And one of the biggest reasons why dance music has had the touring success that it's had in America and now spreading to across the globe. You'll hear more from him in a second. They got movies made about this guy. And then lastly, we have my guy Justin, who is the founder of Eyewax Films, documenting every second of the EDM success story in America. I'm sure branching out to other areas of his film business as well that I'm sure we will hear about shortly. So now let's bring you our first guest, Pete Gross. Pete, what's up, buddy?
What's happening, Jake? How are you, man?
So we're just gonna jump right into it because you guys bought a fucking mountain.
We did indeed. It's been a long road, and I joined up with Summit a couple years ago, but the guys have been getting after it for about 6 years, and a lot of interesting, exciting projects going on right now.
And it's not just any mountain. You guys bought the biggest ski mountain in all of North America, and everybody's under 30, right?
Yeah, the majority of the team's under 30, and the mountain itself is massive. So, it's been a well-kept secret for many years, and Summit's kind of bringing it to the light right now. So it's all exciting.
You guys are crazy. So you're the head of entertainment, which we'll hop into in a second. But talk to us a little bit about what Summit is. I'm sure most people are completely unfamiliar. You guys do a great job of catering to a very core audience and then keeping it sort of a little bit withheld from the public, and I'm sure that everyone's kind of interested in what is Summit.
Totally. So, Summit is a community building company. We started about 6 years ago as a startup in kind of, the conference and event space, and it's grown now into, one of the highest regarded communities or conferences in the world, right up there with TED, Davos, kind of those sort of organizations, whereas we cater a bit towards a younger entrepreneurial crowd. So it began as an annual conference. Each year it grew. We were bringing in anyone from Mark Cuban to Richard Branson to Ted Turner, just all these fascinating people that were really kind of pushing the needle within their own respective field. And that brings us to about 2 years ago where, we kind of looked around, and the community that we had been building and the impact that had been coming out of it was just immense. So anything from, millions of dollars being donated to charities and nonprofits and to start businesses to crazy things like Sean Parker meeting the Spotify guys at one of our events and then bringing Spotify to the U.S. So the impact was huge, and everyone started to think, hey, instead of just doing a once-a-year event, what if we had a year-round home, kind of the epicenter of Summit, so we can carry on the concept and the brand and philosophy that we created. So about 2 years ago, a venture capitalist in our community came to us with the opportunity to buy Powder Mountain. So we opened a fund, and we had people in our community come in and invest at different price points and collectively use the $40 million to purchase the mountain. And now the dream is to build the home of Summit, so build a city of innovation, much like kind of how Aspen started off. Aspen was a busted mining town in the 60s, and the Aspen Institute came in with ideas of bringing in philosophers and philanthropy, and obviously Aspen's gotten a bit out of control now. It's people throwing lobsters at each other up there, but similar thoughts of how they started. And so yeah, we own the mountain now. We're owning and operating the mountain. We continue to sell real estate. We continue to do our marquee Summit events, and a lot of potential to do with the mountain. So everyone's pretty excited about it.
Cool. You mentioned that Sean Parker actually met the Spotify guys at one of your events. Summit's kind of, as someone who has been there, it's kind of like a melting pot of leaders, for the new global world that we live in. How do you guys go about curating such a, I don't want to say a high-level person, that just sounds pretentious, but it's like a very specific individual. What kind of individuals are you guys looking for, and how do people go about becoming a part of what you guys are doing?
Totally. So, it all began, 6 years ago when we started it, and, naturally the community has been built and continues to grow, and so people that are already integrated into the community love to bring their friends and other kind of individuals that they think would be a best thought. But we also have, a full kind of curation team, individuals on our team that it's their role and their responsibility to, meet new people, interview them, get to know them well, see if they're a right fit for Summit, and then bring them out. That's one of the things that I do there is, bringing out people from the music and entertainment industry. But really we just look for, again, people that are just pushing the needle within their own respective field, and it's anyone from astronauts to, artists and musicians to nonprofit leaders to high-level CEOs, but just brings together this kind of melting pot, as you said, of just really interesting, accomplished, smart people that are making an impact in the world.
Yeah, I love it. It's really incredible. You leave with not only some amazing contacts, but also some amazing friends. It's a very open, friendly space, and you guys do a great job of throwing incredibly hospitable events. And part of that hospitality, obviously, as you mentioned, is the entertainment component. So tell us a little bit about what you do in bringing entertainment to the mountain, because I know that last time I was there, the Whalers were playing on the day I left to a small group of people, which is something that you were able to coordinate. How do you go about finding the performers? Who are some of the performers that have come in? And what's been some of those most gratifying moments for you over the past couple of years since you joined the Summit team?
Totally. So, I used to be at William Morris WME before, and I think the Summit guys finally realized that music and entertainment was a big component of their program. And that's kind of when, they brought me over and I joined up with them. But it's cool, what I've done in the short couple of years that I've been there is really just try to diversify, the talent that we bring in. So now it's gone to a point where it's not only, bands and DJs that you would expect, but also comedians, spoken word artists, just other people that are really bringing some cool element to, to show and to impress people. And, of all different levels too. A lot of, young developmental artists, but also a lot of, kind of marquee names and established artists as well. So we've had anyone from the Whalers, as you mentioned, to Gary, in the EDM space, just because this is more centric to that. Gareth Emery, Nero, Axwell, Pretty Lights, Paul Oakenfold, to some pretty high-level big bands too. Tom York, Pitbull, The Roots, a ton of different people. But
you guys had Tom York up on the mountain?
Tom York attended one of our events in New York, actually. It was a dinner that we did. He came as a guest, and he's actually, kind of an introverted person. And so he got to the Summit event, and as you know, it's very about mingling and meeting new people, and so you could tell that he was in an interesting space. And come 30 minutes later, there happened to be a piano in the next room, and he wandered in there, sat down by himself, and started playing. And 30 minutes into it, he had the entire event around him, just sitting there quietly watching him play. So it was pretty. I wasn't there, but I heard it was pretty magnificent.
Cool. And how do you go about explaining to an agent or a manager or an artist the benefit of having their artist perform on the mountain, obviously in front of these super influential small group of people?
Totally. Well, it's always a tough pitch for the agents because, unfortunately, our budget.
I know you got that big money, yeah.
But it's true. There really is just a ton of value that comes out of Summit. Summit is not like your typical networking event. The people that are in the community and that come to our events truly are about helping each other, building businesses, and collaborating. And so, the value that can come out of it for an artist is huge. I've seen, at any given weekend, you can come and there's someone from Interscope there, and there's a production guy that produces all the top music videos there, and a manager and an agent. So there's just brands, Nike, just tons of different ways to collaborate. So it's easy. It's tough to explain sometimes to these people, but I try to explain by giving and citing specific examples of how I've seen cool stuff pop off.
Awesome. Everybody remember that at any point during this live stream, you can tweet your questions to our guests by just hashtagging 20-something live. We actually have our first question right now from Louis the Child. He wants to know, hey Pete, who is the most interesting guest you've ever had at Summit?
Oh man, that's a tough one.
There's been a lot.
That's a really, really tough one. We had a scientist right when I got there this is just the first one that's coming to mind, so I'm going to run with it. We had a scientist that's based up in Mountain View, and this was my second weekend out at Summit. I was still very new. I was familiar with the company and the events and somewhat the programming, but this was my first. We do these content sessions where we bring in speakers and we have the whole event gather, and they're just really cool, intimate conversations and sessions. And there was a scientist that came out. He's based in Mountain View, California, and he's working on the process of reversing aging. So he started diving in and explaining the full aging process, but moreover, the specific techniques and strategies that he's using to reverse it, which just totally blew my mind. And that was my first content talk, sitting there listening to this guy speak and seeing the actual hard, fact evidence that he was presenting, and seeing some actual progress that he was making. So that was definitely a cool one that comes to mind.
Very cool. Yeah, you guys have just an array of individuals. So you mentioned for a second that you came from William Morris. I'm sure a lot of people watching want to enter into the agency world. What advice do you have to give them? How'd you get your first job at William Morris, and how'd you attract the guys at Summit, where you eventually decided to come over?
So I came out to LA, not the typical path, not knowing anyone. I got out here. I've always been a hustler, and I got a job at a small agency in kind of TV and film, and worked there for about a year. So got some good agency experience under my belt, and I had a buddy that worked at WME who, music's always been my passion, and he linked me to the music department. I went in. I had one of the most intense interviews that I've ever had, and I've had some pretty high-end ones interviewing for the CIA and others, but very intense interview with a man named Benjamin Scales. And I just worked, and I think with WME and people that want to get in there, it's just all about kind of hustling and being persistent. And my motto has always been the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and just go hard and don't stop if it's something that you want, do it. So yeah, I had a great time there. I worked for some great, amazing people. Peter Grosslight, who's the executive head of music, Mark Geiger, who's the head of music right now, and then Joel Zimmerman, who does all the electronic stuff. But nothing but great stuff to say about them and all the agents over there.
And did you not want to be an agent, or you saw this new opportunity at Summit, a mixture of both?
I think for me, I was on a pretty good path, and I just realized that it wasn't for me. I think, God, I hope no agents are listening, but for me, being an agent lacks the whole process in the job, lacks a bit of creativity. It's just
me too.
Instead of just a simple booking process, whereas a manager, like yourself, there's so much more to do in terms of creating a brand and creating actual vision around the artist. And the Summit guys, I grew up with one of the founders, so had always been in touch and had watched the company grow and progress over the years. And again, I think they realized that music was a growing portion of their events and their space, and just kind of linked up, and everything, all the stars aligned.
Cool. ADO wants to know, how did that transition go from WME to Summit? Obviously, they're two very, very different jobs. Was it an easy transition, or were you ready for something that was more creative, like you said?
It was an interesting transition. At the time at WME, I was working 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. every single night, going home, working on my computer for 2 hours. So Summit is a very open environment. It's, feels like everything's tangible. And so the transition to going to a small startup environment like that from, essentially kind of a corporate company was big. And it's funny, I look back now and say, God, I don't think I could ever go and work in an office again, just because of, the freedom that I have now. And, I think essentially it is the freedom that creates the, the success. So.
I know that you were only an assistant. I put that in quotes because I know how much the assistants do at these big agencies. When Lollapalooza went from becoming a North American, specifically Chicago brand, to being something overseas that now is super successful in Chile and Brazil. And I know that you still attend those international Lollapaloozas despite your job at Summit, whether for pleasure or just friends of yours. And I want to hear a little bit about what it was like to take a festival and bring it overseas.
Totally, yeah. So I worked on that when I was working with Geiger. He's obviously the creator of Lollapalooza, and I went down there. It was the second year of Santiago, Chile, and the first year of Sao Paulo, Brazil. So in terms of WME's actual involvement of the booking process, it was being on calls with C3 and all my buddies over there, just weekly calls, looking at clients. And the most interesting part for me was seeing how artists and their popularity transgress against different continents and countries, because you can have X, Y, and Z client that's huge in the U.S., but is worth 10 tickets down in South America, or vice versa. So it was a really interesting process, really cool, more so working with the local partners down there that WME and C3 have aligned themselves with. Great people, but cool, again, the festival business is, as and Donnie knows and everyone else, is a long-term business. It builds over the years, and so it's super cool to go back now year after year and see how they've grown and see how the festivals have really come together and the improvements that they make each year.
Awesome. Cool, Pete. Thank you so much for joining us on 20-something.
Awesome. Thanks, Jake. Thanks for having me.
All right, brother. All right, guys. Our next guest is the man, the myth, the legend, the best dressed in dance music for sure, and he's going to tell you a little bit about his influence on the genre, the culture, and everything that he's created that is dance music. And he's sponsored today by AOL, so make some noise for Disco Donnie. Woo!
What's up?
There he is. So I'm still looking. I still haven't seen your movie, right?
Okay.
And I'm still looking. I still got to go on eBay after this and get you a Friendster T-shirt.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Friendster, MySpace. I mean, I own stock in all of them.
You are the ultimate G, Donnie.
Thank you. Thank you.
The ultimate. So what's going on with you guys? Obviously, you sold your company and partnered with SFX a few years ago. You've been extremely influential as really the first mover on a whole wide array of acts, I'm sure, over the last several years, and have been such a major role in the success of Corella and our touring. Talk to me a little bit about what's going on now at the company.
Nothing. I mean, we're still growing. I mean, we're still putting it all together. Nothing. I mean, nothing. Like nothing new. We're still putting it all together. I mean, it's a work in progress, and we're putting it all together with a lot of good people and trying to figure out. It's such a big entity that we need to figure out how it all works together, and that's kind of what we're doing. Luckily, there's a lot of smart people involved, and a lot of motivated people involved, and it seems like it's going to be a really good thing.
For sure. So what's your involvement at this point with the company since you sold, and what's it been like going from throwing raves out of your mom's basement to toying with the amount of money and resources that a company like SFX has?
Well, I mean, my involvement, I was there at the ground zero on it. So basically,
you were the first, right?
Yeah. Well, I created the deck. I paid for the deck. I mean, there was multiple people involved, but I paid for the deck that had all the acquisitions with the team that presented it to Bob Sillerman. So I was at the very beginning of the whole thing. So and I pretty much walked in probably 90% of the companies that are in there right now. So, wow. Yeah, let me pat myself on the back there.
I love it. I think there's a misconception that you have to be 20-something to be on the show, but that's not the case. Obviously, you are not 20-something. And I think it's really important. I want to know what you were doing in your 20s and how you got to this point, because I think that's the point of 20-something, is that people that are in their 20s can learn from the experiences of young people, which you still are, and kind of inform them of what it takes to reach this level of success that the guests of our show have reached. So I think we'd all love to hear about what you were doing in your 20s and how you made it here.
Well, I mean, obviously I act 20, so I'm like, I think I fit right into the show. And then, I mean, basically what my advice and how I got involved was I just saw something. I went to school for accounting. I was in an accounting job and stuff, and I just saw something that I fell in love with, and it became a hobby that I was passionate about. And just my advice to anybody out there, I know there's a lot of people trying to get into this industry, and there seems like all the doors are closed. With it's basically just takes a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of luck, a little bit of luck. But I just keep telling people, just don't give up. And if people keep seeing you around, you keep knocking on those doors, then eventually one's going to open.
So what were some of those specific experiences for you in your career?
I mean, well, I started out, I just went, when I went to my first show, it was a very small show. We're talking about under 100 people. but I was the reason it brought me in is because of the community, the family, the music, all the different kinds of people that were at the show, and I was so intrigued about why I didn't know about the show. Why did I have to find out from somebody else? How long has this been going on? Why I've been wasting my life in accounting when sorry. So basically, why have I been wasting my life in accounting when I could have been doing this stuff? And I was just very interested in the whole thing that was going on, and I just went up to the promoter and I said, "Hey, how can I help you?" And he's like, "Okay, here's some flyers, promote the show." So I started I came from the dance floor, went straight to street promoter, and the guy gave me like 20. He did really well on the show, gave me $20. Then the other people started hiring me, and then I finally caught on. They were giving me nothing.
You're cheap,
free. Well, I mean, we're talking about the door price was $10, so we're not talking about crazy. But so basically, eventually, I was like, somebody came up to me, and because they knew I was out every night and I was hustling and meeting people and going all over town, just promoting the scene, not just the party.
This was in New Orleans?
This is in New Orleans, yeah. I used to have like a little crew, we used to go out like every single night to wherever anybody was, and we would just, we would go crazy, but at the same time we were promoting the show. And when you were promoting the show back then, you were promoting, it wasn't like it was today. It's like you're handing somebody a flyer. You have to sell them on it. You can't just say, oh, here's a flyer for a party, and they're going to see some local DJs on it, and they don't even know what it was. They don't even know electronic music. So you really had to say, hey, look, come to the show. It's going to be great. We're going to have girls, blah, 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 blah. You have to like really sell it to them. It was like a 15-minute process when somebody was interested. So you really had to push it. And eventually, after I was promoting for enough people, the next person that came to me was like, will you promote for me? And I said, yeah, for 50% of the door. And that's how I became a promoter. And it was just it really was. I still had 2 other jobs. I was doing accounting by day and waiting tables on the weekends, but it was just a hobby. We're talking about, I made like $200 on my first show or something. So it was just for fun. So I mean, that's kind of how I got started. A little, like I said, a little bit of luck.
And did you already have the Disco Donnie moniker at that point? Were you waiting tables with like a little Disco Donnie name?
I did not have that at my. Yeah, I should have. I probably got bigger tips. But I basically, that came from, my dad was, he was a lawyer in the 70s when we were growing up, and at some point, when I was 7 or 8 years old, he decided he didn't want to be married anymore or have children, and he decided he wanted to leave, and he disappeared for about a year. He had his own law firm. He quit his firm. He left for about a year, and when he showed up about a year later, and he was a disco DJ named Disco Jim. So that's kind of where I took on the name. I had his clothes. I had stuff with disco on it. I had stuff with little disco on it. So when I started going to the parties, I started wearing a lot of those clothes, and I had clothes that said disco and stuff like that. So I kind of adopted my dad's persona.
I love it. So at what point did you realize that a hobby, sort of third job, if you will, could become a full-time profession and sort of get you where you are today?
I mean, it's I'm still not sure about it. I remember I quit, I think it was 95, and got my first big check. It was like a couple $1,000s on a show or something, and I was like, so I went in and quit both my jobs. I think I had to get them both back within a 12-month period. I went back with my tail between my legs, and it's been a struggle ever since. The scene got really big in the late 90s and 2000. It kind of crashed in 2001. It was a real struggle. 2002, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You could start seeing the sunlight coming in. It was a really, it was a tough scenario where, now I have a kid, my wife's pregnant, I can't put gas in my car, but I'm continuing to do shows every weekend. And my wife's like, you need to get a job. And I'm like, I have a job. She's like, no, you need to get a real job. And I mean, I really had to think about whether, what if I had to get a job. So I mean, and a lot of people went through that in the mid 2000s. It was a real struggle. We were basically risking everything every weekend to do shows. So I could see it really starting to build. Even LA, I mean, EDC, we were doing 10,000 people, for 3 or 4 years. So there was no growth. But I could, maybe 2008, 2009 is when you could start seeing that there was definitely an upslant to it, and it wasn't like you see it today, but you could definitely see it was something growing. And it was, I had dedicated, by that time I had already dedicated 13, 14 years to it, so I figured I might as well ride it out. And I don't think I could have another job at this point. So.
I don't think you need another job at this point.
AOL call me.
So we keep talking about what it is that you do, but for everybody watching, I mean, obviously the big partnership with SFX came together, but what exactly is it that Disco Donnie Presents does for everybody else? I mean, you guys have a lot of markets, you guys have started festivals. Talk about some of the properties and what it's taken to build them to get them where they are today.
I mean, well, basically what I did was, I mean, when the whole market crashed in 2001, I had a lot of relationships with a lot of promoters. I had just come out of this huge court case in New Orleans, so basically all my market was New Orleans. I was actually helping people in Texas and a few other places in the 90s, but my main market was New Orleans. And we had this huge federal court case that came up, and it really killed the market in New Orleans. And at the same time, the whole market crashed imploded on itself. The whole dance scene imploded. So basically, I was at the same time my wife got a residency at Ohio State. We moved to Columbus, Ohio. So I kind of started spreading out my wings. I basically started calling up promoters that I knew for years that we traded flyers with, we traded information, and I asked them, why aren't you doing shows anymore? And they were basically like, well, I don't have the money to do it. And I said, well, I don't have the money either, but if we do this together and we do it right, and then it's going to come back. I didn't realize that it was going to take 15 years to come back, but at the time it seemed like a really good idea. So basically I just started doing, I started doing Columbus, Cincinnati, Cleveland, just doing connectors, so I was doing the whole weekend for an artist, and Austin, Houston, Dallas, Orlando, Tampa, so I started just doing connectors for the artists like that, and eventually the agents would just give me their whole tours, and it just kind of built out. It was pretty symbiotic. It wasn't really a drawn out plan. It basically just happened on itself. I mean, I knew what I was doing because I knew I needed to have 2 cities that were close to each other, and that could do good shows, but it wasn't like I'm like, okay, I'm going to take over the whole country. It just happened on its own because nobody was doing anything. So we were providing content for the fans, and we were also providing money to the agents and gigs for the DJs. So that's how we built it out, and I ended up doing I've done over 100 markets in the U.S. and outside the U.S. We've kind of concentrated on 30 now because it was a little, is a little too much. But that's how we've grown it out. It was basically like a mom and pop organization that became a really big company.
How important do you feel like it is for these upcoming DJs to get out and get exposed to all these different markets across the country, and how have you seen it be influential in the growth of some of these acts?
I mean, I think it still goes back to where with the fans basically, like the bands, like the old school rock bands, they still tour. They still go out there and do their live shows. And yeah, they're doing it for the money, but the main thing is they're building new fans and growing their brand. And I mean, I think it's very important for a lot of these guys that you see that are really big these days. Even like the Tiestos. And I mean, he played these little shitty markets. He toured. He played every single night of the week. He's played San Antonio for me, 5 or 6 times. I mean, not that San Antonio's a shit. Sorry, San Antonio. But I'm saying these markets that people don't go to, he's been there. He's been there more than a lot of other cities. So it's like, I think it's really important that these artists get out there and tour. One of the issues now is they get so much money so fast, and they can grab so much money. They can play 20 dates in Vegas, and they don't need to work. They don't need to tour anywhere else. But what they're missing is the interaction with their fans and growing their fan base. So, God damn it, play San Antonio, artist.
Gotta offer them a residency.
Yeah, San Antonio every Saturday.
So for these acts that are getting that kind of Vegas money, does that leave an opportunity for some of these younger acts to go in and play all these markets, or is there just more artists in the scene in general? Because back then, it's like if Tiesto was going into a market where no other DJ was coming in and playing for you, or not a lot, he was obviously getting those eyeballs, getting those fans, and now throughout the years, he's obviously been able to have a long career, a lot of longevity. So do you think that opportunity still exists to go into some of these secondary and tertiary markets where some of these foreign DJs aren't willing to come in and play for lesser fees?
No, I mean, I think it's, like I said, it's very important. And what we have set up in all of our markets is, we have the 400-person club, then we have the 1,000-person club, then we have hopefully the 2,000-person hard-ticket venue, then we have the arena. And what we've always been able to do is kind of hopefully take that artist from their first step, their first time in that market, and basically work them all the way through. So hopefully we can build that relationship where we stay together until they're in an arena. We have done that with some people, and we're doing that with a lot more. But I mean, that's very important. There's these new artists that are coming up. There's new ones coming up every day. It's very important to incubate that, so eventually they can grow into a bigger artist with where they won't play for us anyway. So it's very important.
Cool. Joey Hollywood wants to know, what's it like to work with SFX, and what do you think is their best event?
SFX and their best event. SFX has been it's been great so far. It's taken a lot of stress off of me where I was spending 70% of my time chasing money and trying to get money from people that owe me, and basically telling people I'm going to pay them. And the company was growing so big, it was impossible to do without basically having an investment income. And then the best event that they've done, that SFX has, I mean, I think this is pretty, I think the Tomorrow Land is probably the best event that SFX has.
Cool. And ADO wants to know, how'd the partnership with Insomniac come alive? I assume he's talking about years back, because SFX is not partnered with Insomniac.
Right. The old thing, well, Pasquale and we met, I think, in 97 or 98 at Winter Music Conference, and we became great friends. And I think we started working together a year later, and we worked together kind of off and on all the way through 2007, 2008. We combined companies. I rolled my company into Insomniac in 2008, and then we parted ways probably right around 2012, like right before I went into the SFX thing. So it was great. I learned a lot. I had great times and made great friends. So.
Cool. Next question. SFX just acquired React Presents. What does that mean for the Midwest scene?
I mean, obviously, Lucas and Jeff. It was a hard sell. I think I flew to Chicago 2 times and flew them to New York once. So it was a hard sell to get them in. But I mean, it's great for the company. They obviously have the Spring Awakening and the North Coast festivals going. I'm not sure. I can't remember what the one in Minneapolis is, and they're working on expanding a couple other things. But I mean, they've been great so far. I've known them for a long time, and they're great operators. You know, and they're basically killing it in the Midwest right now. So it's a good thing.
So you guys now, you have all these different pieces, like you said, you're still trying to figure out how they all work together, and then you're also expanding at the same time. Is there any, super key initiative that, dance music fans watching, people that want to get in the industry, can look out for as far as things to look out for as far as to be entertained, and likewise maybe areas of opportunities for employment or various things that you guys are looking to do?
I mean, I think that right now there's, maybe there's a lot of stuff on the live side. That's maybe the live side might be becoming a little oversaturated, but I think that for people that are interested in finding their place in the scene, it's basically it's a lifestyle. So it's not just that one show you go to. It's not that one festival. It's basically a 24/7 type of lifestyle. So what people should concentrate on to find their niche in this is how can I connect with those people 24 hours a day? I mean, it's the first thing I do when I wake up is I'm listening to new songs and looking at new music and stuff like that. While I'm checking my email, and it's like, so the scene is connecting to me 24/7. When I'm not sleeping, I'm dreaming about the rave. When I'm awake, I am in the rave. So basically, and that's how people live. It's their lives. And I think the way to find that is how can the easy entry in this is find some way to be able to connect to these people 24/7. And I think there's a lot of jobs in that, coming up in the next 5 to 10 years.
Cool. You'll be creating some of them. Before I let you go back to your full-time job as the CEO of AOL Time Warner,
yes.
I just wanted to use this opportunity to thank you. I know I've said it before, but with people watching, I just really wanted to take advantage of this time because I know that without those sunglasses, Cruella would not be where they are today. And there it is, ladies and gentlemen. But Donnie, seriously, it's been a pleasure building with you over the past few years, and you've brought us to plenty of cities that we never dreamed of even playing shows, and stages we'd never dreamed of playing, or did dream of playing, and never thought that we'd have the opportunity. And you've believed in us since day one, before a lot of people in this country and the rest of the world did. So thank you so much.
No, I mean, and thank you guys. I mean, you've been a joy to work with, and I'm very happy for your success, and hopefully I'm sure we will have many more years in business. You guys deserve it. Keep your heads, keep your head small and keep being nice to people, and it comes back around. I promise you.
Cool. Thank you. You got to send me one of those hats.
All right, I will. I've got multiple ones here. I was gonna do a whole change of outfits every 5 seconds, but it didn't work out.
One last question. When we played that first festival, right, we had our little incident where somebody from our stage threw something into the crowd, hit somebody in the head. We don't need to get into it. How did you know that, that it was still something? Because sometimes those relationships, I feel like with young people, we're young, they go sour so quickly with people that have been doing it for a long time. Is there any advice you could give for people to forgive people so that you don't ruin an opportunity? Because obviously we've done a lot of amazing business together since. And likewise, any feedback to how people can handle those type of situations where maybe something goes sour?
I mean, every incident or every situation has its own answer. But, I mean, basically, with that whole thing, just to give people the backstory.
Go for it, brother.
So, I think we had Cruella in Dallas on a festival, and I was at this really foofy hotel, and I'm in this meeting or whatever. And I see this whole crew, people that don't have bathing suits on or anything like that. This is the real backstory. I'll try to be quick because
no, bring it. We got time.
Okay, so the people I was like, oh, what's going on out there? And they had bottles of champagne, and there's all these people. It's imagine some kind of foofy pool party with parents and kids and stuff. It was a really strange vibe. And then I was like, oh. Yeah, that's Cruella. They're playing for me. They had all these people. They didn't have bathing suits on. They just went in with their shorts and shit like that. So they were getting crazy in the pool. And then later that night at the festival, I think they had somebody from MTV with them. So that was my first introduction to them. And then later that night, I think that's somebody from MTV with them hanging out, and they got too excited on the stage, and they threw a bottle, and it hit some girl in the head, and she had to go to the hospital. And then they threw somebody in the cruise threw another bottle. I mean, I just had to, let them know that it was important that they can't allow people to do that, and it's on them in the future. But I knew it wasn't them, so we just let it wash, and they were very apologetic, and it's a good story. It's basically that's how we met, because they were busting bottles over ravers' heads. And I was like, all right, that's cool, but just chill out a little next time, So, and they were like, okay, we will. So, that was the story, and it was just basically, it's all about second chances and stuff. So it's all about hats and glasses.
Thank you for giving us a second chance, Donnie. We
Anytime.
appreciate everything you've done for us. All right, my brother.
Appreciate you. All right, thank you.
And let us know where can we see the movie?
The movie, I hear it's on Netflix or something. I mean, it's not. It was a documentary. They shot it in the '90s. I mean, I really didn't have any kind of say in it, but it was shot in the '90s. I mean, people see it's on Netflix. It's on like pay-per-view sometimes. So I think there's some free versions of it, but I shouldn't talk about those. So.
If you want to see more of the man in glasses and this rainbow hat, go check out his movie, his documentary on Netflix. So I'm sure if it's as entertaining as you are, I can't wait to watch it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Donnie.
All right, love you guys. All right. Good luck, Justin.
Cool. Disco Donnie, the man, the myth, the legend. He's going blackout on us right there. Donnie's amazing. He's been, as far as guys that have really changed the world that we live in dance music, he's definitely one of them. It's been an honor to know him, and I hope that you all enjoyed having him on the show. And now to our last guest, the founder of Eyewax Films, documenting every step of the way for dance music. Justin, welcome to the show, buddy. I don't see you. I think you're still muted, or there he is.
I got my hat and sunglasses in my so yeah, what's up?
What up? You got to compete with Donnie. That's a hard thing to do.
That's a tough sell, man. That's real tough. What's going on, man?
Where are you at right now? Your office?
Yeah, I'm in my office. We're in Hollywood. We're right across from a hot wing joint that I eat at all the time. I love it here.
Cool. They sponsor you too, I hope, for that shout out.
They should, man. They really should. They would get a lot of business.
I think we actually met for the first time at one of Donnie's festivals.
I believe so. Yeah.
You and me.
Yeah, you and me last year. I think the party was like so crazy and so wild. You guys were like, dude, we have to capture this. This is wild. But the way it had worked out, I was leaving the next day. I was like, bring little Miles out, man. What's up?
Yeah, definitely. Cool. So talk to us a little bit about what Eyewax has done, some of the content you guys have put out, what you're working on today.
Well, what Eyewax has done, I mean, I kind of just started off as like a kid with a video camera filming DJs and stuff. And over the last few years, we've sort of evolved to basically do the same thing, but our clientele, and as dance music gets a little bit bigger, you know what I mean? So we do a lot of, like we just talked about, festival stuff where we're making like the trailers and the marketing materials. Same with some of the artists that we work with, and ends up just being a lot of content for artists now because the video is so important, right? Some of the stuff that we have worked on, we've done a lot of work with Cascade over the last few years. We did his Freaks of Nature like concert DVD documentary last year. Right now, I'm like in post-production at my desk right now on a Zed documentary that we're working on that we did last year, and just a whole bunch of little tiny festival trailers, promotions, marketing things in between.
Is that Zed documentary a full-length documentary?
No, we're working on it. It's a little bit shorter. It started off as something that was going to be longer. It's gone through a lot of different stages as we've shot it, and the way the tour went, and the way that the story went after the Grammy win. Like we started filming right before the Grammy win, sort of thing. So it's changed a lot. Right now, it's shorter. It's not a feature length, but we're kind of sitting on this first section and deciding what to do with it, and either cutting it out or making something bigger out of it.
I think it's everyone's dream to kind of turn their hobby into a profession, where they can get paid for what they do. Did you always aspire for what you're doing to become a profession to have your own business? Were you always an entrepreneur, or did you just sort of follow what you love and it just happened this way?
Yeah, no, not at all. Actually, oddly enough, I was in accounting also. I was living in San Diego and studying to go into finance, and then I think a couple of years into it, I just decided that this sucks. I don't like it. I don't like sitting in a cubicle. And I've always DJ'd, played music and stuff like that, and I found that like my open door to get into music, you know, talking about beating down on doors. My door was like this video camera that I got from deciding that I didn't like accounting and going to film school. So I just started filming stuff, and it just kind of spiraled. You know what I mean? It was at the time where like YouTube wasn't a thing really. Everybody was on MySpace, so it was like I kind of got into like shooting videos like these kind of videos, the things that I'm sure you guys are familiar with like Crew Life, you know, the festival trailers, the club promotions, all these. I started doing it like when it was MySpace and YouTube wasn't that popular, and it just ended up. I just ended up getting work, you know what I mean, and I've just continued to evolve it from there.
What was the first show you filmed?
The first show I filmed was one of my shows. I was at like I was doing a DJ competition, I think, in San Diego at a club called what was the name of that club? I don't even remember the name of the club, but I won the DJ competition, and like I filmed it, or actually my partner at the time filmed it, and we filmed the rest of it and made like a video out of it, and then we ended up getting that. So I was trying to DJ, but we ended up getting that clientele from like filming the show. You know what I mean? And it just ended up, you know, being popular doing videos online.
How do you continue to separate yourself? I mean, obviously any videographer can go and get a 5D out there now, and you know, for a couple $1,000s, they can say that they shoot. How do you separate yourself from being a videographer to actually being a director to now you guys, I believe, are a full-service production agency, right?
Right. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, there's definitely a whole bunch of people that are able to do this now, and I think it's awesome because it's like same sort of thing that I did. Of course, it was quite a bit less accessible when I started, but I don't really try to compete with them so much as I just am trying to continually evolve what it is that we're doing. You know, there's something that a kid in you know, Wisconsin can do with a camera for somebody like you for like way cheaper and easier and quicker than what I can do for you. You know what I mean? That's a content and like a coverage thing that isn't an area that I really deal with anymore. It's more like trying to figure out how to like increase brand exposure for bigger festivals and artists over a longer period of time that probably those guys don't have the understanding of the business or the you know, the logistics to accomplish. And then of course there's also in the last couple of years or so, as I've seen that happen, as like everybody has a camera, everybody sort of does the same sort of thing, I've evolved our business and my creative direction in order to like, you know, link up a little bit more with corporate brands that are inside of music, and then just kind of like moving into a commercial space, areas that are like a viable production company sort of deal, in addition to keeping our roots in dance music, you know.
Yeah, how do you balance the things that are, you know, I see so many people in the video space do things for corporate and commercial versus working on the music stuff and the things that they love. How do you balance it, and how do you, you know, keep pushing the ball forward, running your business while still being, obviously, you know, at the end of the day, you're an artist yourself?
Well, there's kind of two questions in there, right? One of them is like running a business and being creative at the same time, and that's, I don't know, actually. I don't know what the best way to do that is because I still haven't figured it out. You know, it's kind of a constant battle between like getting all this done so that I can do this part that I really like doing. So it's kind of a balancing act there with like, you know, getting everything done. The other part with like, you know, balancing corporate stuff and work stuff is that it hasn't been a huge area for us yet. We've only started doing it in the past year and a half or so. But all the corporate work that I've done is inside of music. So it's like I'm doing work with Native Instruments right now, who like they have the hardware and the software controllers that DJs use, or like the MIDI controllers and stuff. So it's still inside of music, you know. And then our mutual friend Nick, who introduced me to you guys, you know, he has the DJ production school and the electronic music production school up north. We're doing some work with them too, you know what I mean? So it's like I grew up like listening to this music. It's like it's been my passion for so long that all the stuff that we do in Eyewax, a couple other gigs aside, it still tries to have that, like, we still try to stay in this space that we're really passionate about, because that's what allows us to do good work.
Where does the name Eyewax come from?
Actually, Eyewax came from, well, you know, we used to, when DJs used to DJ, they used to do it on records, right? This is before, like, the laptops and the controllers and all that stuff, right? So
now I feel like a moron.
You know, I started as a DJ. This is how I ended up doing this. And I was buying records, and it was wax is what we called it, right? Because that's how they press the dub plates. And when I was thinking of a name for what we're going to call this little business that's like, you know, we film DJs and film music, it's like, oh, we just need something to represent how you see it, and then something that represents what we're doing. So it was Eyewax. Eyewax is your eye. Finals for vinyl.
All good. John Wayne wants to know, when will you be back at UME South Padre next year? It's a long time away. And what do you plan to bring?
Okay. Well, I guess I don't know if Donnie is still on this call, but that's kind of up to him. But very most likely, the work that I've done down there has been super rewarding. I've gotten the really good opportunity to, one, do what I love, but go to awesome places to do it. And South Padre Island is one of those places where it's like, it's pretty much a vacation town, right? It's like, it's a beach town. There's waves. There's surfing. There's
we have breaking news. Donnie says Justin will 100% be there here in the chat.
All right, cool. There's the answer right there. Bam.
But he says though, you must bring your hat and sunglasses.
All right, we're on. I got it. But yeah, like it's a badass place down there. The work down there is a lot of fun. The fans in markets like Texas, because I do a lot of one-on-one FaceTime with the people that go to the festivals, because we are inside of the crowd or like working with them. The fans that are there in Texas are like super enthusiastic and super stoked, and we get to hang out on the beach for a week. So next year I'll probably be trying to get them, yo, Donnie, if you're still watching, I'll try to get them to let me bring even more toys out next year. You know, I think we had a few camera guys, we had our crane, we had the helicopter, and some other odds and ends. Next year, who knows? Maybe we bring 2 helicopters. We bring two cranes.
Cool. How'd you get the knowledge working the equipment? You know, was it through tutorials online? Was it just learning by experience, or?
Yeah, pretty much just online, man. I think it's funny enough, though, the way technology is. The camera that I just replaced, you know, just very recently, or just got another camera. The camera that I got when I started doing this was like a 7D, which is the camera that a lot of people are still using. So it's like, I just bought a camera online, and then from there, as clients began to trust us a little bit more and see what we were capable of doing with more money and a bigger budget, it just was a matter of like looking online and seeing what was out there, researching what other people were doing, finding out how to operate a RED, you know, and like finding the logistics in place to do that kind of stuff. Because there's a interesting breed of filmmaker that has come out, like myself included, and many other guys, which is just like the standalone kid with a 7D and a laptop, which before like probably 7 years or so didn't really exist in the capacity that it does now. So it's like a lot of people, myself included, have trouble learning to work in a big set or a big team because of our roots in just being a kid with a camera, versus like a lot of people that probably came up, you know, on set at film school, or, you know, doing these big productions. It's like a different workflow. So it's just been a learning process over time, finding the right people to work with that know the things that you don't know, finding the way to find out about equipment, and then, you know, getting the budgets to use it and make things awesome.
Were you guys always in California?
Yeah. I moved to LA about 4 years ago. But yeah, always been in Southern California, San Diego, OC, and now LA.
Cool. What's next for you guys over the next year, 2 years, 3 years? Where do you want to be?
Next few years, there's kind of it's kind of a two-pronged thing here. Like myself personally, I'm intending to get into longer documentaries and bigger production work as a director and a commercial director. For Eyewax itself, it's basically just expanding and finding a better way to get artists the content and the marketing materials and the stuff that they need. Because, like I said, when we started, YouTube wasn't even a thing, and then dance music wasn't even a thing. YouTube and dance music kind of went like this at the same time, and it's gotten really popular. Now there's so much content and there's so much stuff going on. I'm sure you're aware of this. You do this stuff all the time, that you're kind of trying to figure out the best way to contact, keep in touch with your artists. I'm sorry, your fan base. It's probably a little bit different than it was a year and a half, 2 years ago. So really just trying to find the best way to service our clients and get them the stuff that they need in order to continue interacting with their audiences the way they've found beneficial over the last 3 years.
Cool. Awesome. I'm sure I'll see you at plenty of festivals this summer. I look forward to coming to check out the headquarters at some point. Looks like you guys are hard at work, and it's always cool to see what you guys do. So congratulations on all your success with Eyewax, and we're ready to see your commercial director debut when you're ready.
All right. Hey, how about you? Where do you see video going in the next few years? Because I know that I started seeing Cruella through their videos. Is how and a few other people that I know. How did that kind of affect what they had going on, and where do you see that stuff
I think it was a huge part of it. I talk about it with Miles a lot. I talk about the band, seeing those videos where you could see the show and sort of have a low barrier to entry as far as being able to just see it on YouTube versus having to pay and go to the local club or venue that we were performing at. And it was just really timed right. We did a very small tour and captured it and put it out, and then did a couple small markets and colleges, and put it out. But the vibe of the band and the way the personalities were felt through the video, and then the way the audience was reacting, and making sure you really captured those moments, I think sort of created that self-fulfilling prophecy that, wow, there was going to be more of those moments, and indeed there were, and the band really backed it up with their music and their live show, and really expanding that over the past few years. And I think it's just become something that's really innate in what we do. And it's about finding a way to continue now to create different kinds of content, but still speak the same language to the fans. So they don't have to see the same thing over and over and over. Sometimes, acts fall into doing the same thing over. It's very easy to play it safe, but it also, at some point, the growth stunts. You have to take those risks, and sometimes the current fan base doesn't stay with you for the risks. So it's interesting to try to, I think, sort of create, we always call it communication intelligence, just how to brand and express ourselves differently across varying touch points. And with video, kind of like making a song, I think sky's the limit. I think there's so much work to be done. I think too few artists out there put the attention on video the way it should be. I think video is really the only perfect extension, maybe other than the graphics, of an artist's art. And the way that an artist's business is handled, believe it or not, impacts their art. But that's not, to me, a direct extension of that. That's another partner or something like that. But the video component is so necessary. And I've been a part of artists' careers and seen other artists' careers where they either A, put too little focus, B, invest too little, or C, never really find the right people that figure out how to express their artistic vision through video. And I think those are the artists that aren't on the top right now, because almost all the ones that are on top, they found a way to do it.
Interesting. Yeah, you have a lot of the same points. You have a lot of the same thoughts that I do. It's interesting to hear it from your perspective as an artist manager and to see where it went.
Yeah, it's absolutely essential. I'm not talking about the tour recap here or this recap there. Let's create art. Let's create things that are really going to speak and be shared. And it's difficult. There's a lot of noise out there. Like you mentioned,
sure.
Trying to find ways to reach the fans, and obviously decisions from companies like Facebook fuck it up for everybody.
Right.
My little public message right there. But it's just it's interesting to see what they're doing, and at the end of the day, what's going to speak the loudest is the best content, the best music wins, the best video wins, the best marketing wins, because you need all those things to really make these acts successful. And the best acts find a way to make all those things happen. They have a vision for it, and it takes guys like you, Justin, to create that for them and with them, really, at the end of the day. So.
Right, man. Cool. Thank you. Appreciate that.
All right, yeah, thank you so much for joining me on 20-something, and thank you to all three of our guests today for joining us here on our 7th episode of 20-something at Third Brain. I'm out.
See you.